Welcome to Kicks and Minivans, the podcast for dads, especially the ones that love sneakers. I'm your host, KG. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. This is the final episode of 2022. I want to say we made it through the first year as a podcast, but we made it through like the first 2 months. But hey, man, we appreciate you. And especially all you guys have been tuning in each episode, sharing content, leaving comments and reviews, man. Appreciate you so much. I love you all. But as we are getting into, this is the last episode of 2022, I wanted to share my top 5 releases, my top 5 sneaker releases of 2022. Now, this is my personal favorite, right? This isn't me saying like these are the 5 best. These are my personal favorites. So I do think they're the 5 best. But I know this list ain't going to be probably the same as anybody else's out there. And that's cool. I can live with that. And I want to preface it by saying this. 2022 was nowhere near as hot as 2021 as far as sneaker releases go. I feel like there was just an unlimited amount of releases I was hyped for in 2021. Not nearly as much this past year, which is probably a little bit better for my bank account. But there was still some hot sneakers that dropped this year. So let's get into them. First, I want to give an honorable mention. And I already feel the hate and the DMs coming my way from this. But the honorable mention, the Jordan 1 Lost and Found. I know what y'all saying, but look. The fact that it took me 8 minutes to enter the draw on sneakers. And then I was left pending. I was left on red for 71 minutes before they handed me my L. 71 minutes. I was left on red. Then I was pending before I didn't get them. Man, fix it, Nike. Fix it, Nike. Fix sneakers, man. Come on. Like, that many, 71 minutes I was left on pending. And then on top of that, you got people getting their pairs in the mail with mold on them? I don't know what I'd be more upset about, like getting an L after 71 minutes or actually winning them and then you get a nasty pair in the mail. I don't know. But all that, they get honorable mention. If I hit up on sneakers, they'd probably be number 1, though. I'll be real. All right. Coming in at number 5, I got the Jordan 3 Cardinal. Now, Jordan 3s have, like, grown way much in my liking. Like, I've fallen in love with Jordan 3s over the last year. I picked up a couple pairs this year. Jordan 3 Cardinals are, I love them, man. I think they're super underrated. I think they're slept on. No, Jordan 3 Fire Red is not higher on this list. I like the Cardinals more than the Fire Red. I know I'm in the minority on that. I don't care. I think the gold pops it off. I think the Fire Red's kind of bland and boring. I like the Cardinal a lot more. They get the number 5 spot for me. Number 4, the Orange Lobster Dunks. The concept collab, the Orange Lobster Dunks. I just think they're dope. I think the white laces pop. I think just everything is just right about those. No, I didn't get them, but I wasn't as disappointed about not getting them as I was not getting the Lost and Founds. Number 3, this isn't going to be on anybody else's top 5 list probably, but this is a sneaker that I waited a year. After I saw an image of these, I waited over a year before they were actually available. The Dame 8s, the light blue and pink Dame 8s. I think these things are beautiful. Dame Lillard line of sneakers are my favorite basketball sneakers I've ever played in. I think the light blue and pink colorway was just beautiful. Lots of other Dame 8s had come out before that, but I saw Dame had posted a picture on his Instagram like a year before they actually released, and I saw that one and said, I am waiting until that one is available. I am buying that pair of Dame 8s. Bought them, loved them. They are absolutely beautiful. I don't care what you say. They are number 3 this year for me. Number 2, this was my only sneaker dub this year. I had it like 5 or 6 times in 2021. This was my only sneaker dub this year. And this was like one of the few that I was like, the resale wasn't crazy high. I was going to go get it no matter what. But the Jordan 1 taxis, man, the material on it is just perfect. And that black outer with the color black, like that just, you can never go wrong with that. And so the Jordan 1 high taxi, that's number 2 this year. And number 1, my favorite sneaker that released this year. No, I did not get this one either. Maybe someday. But the Philadelphia Phillies powder blue dunks. I just think they're beautiful. And I'm not a big low top. I know I have 2 low top dunks on here. I'm not a big dunk guy, and I'm not a big fan of lows either. But both of these colorways, I just think are super, just beautiful sneakers. And maybe it's the Philly in me, but I absolutely love the throwback Philly colors on this Dunk. And so that is my favorite sneaker that came out this year. Might have been the Lost and Found ones if I would have actually hit on sneakers, or if I wasn't left on red for 71 minutes. Well, as we get into the meat of this episode, I am joined this week by my friend Josh Crum. We met on staff at a church, the last church I was working at before I went full-time dad. We were on staff together there for like 4 or 5 months. He joined right after COVID had hit. Ironically enough, he was living in Indiana. I was still in PA, and he was going to be moving to PA. And I didn't know I was moving to India, but he was going to be moving to PA to join our staff. COVID hit, and so we went all virtual, and he got to join our staff earlier than expected, which was dope, because if he waited till his original time, I would have been moving to Indiana the same time he was moving from Indy to Philly. But we just kind of connected. He's a big sneaker fan. One of the few people I personally know that has more sneakers than me, so I always love talking about sneakers with him. He's also just like my resident genius on sneakers. Like, if I got a question about sneakers, like, I swear this dude knows everything there is to know about sneakers. And so love tapping into him for that and chopping it up with him on that. But big basketball fan and just big family guy, man. Just someone I really connected with, had some fun chopping it up with. But someone that loves his wife, loves his kids, and his family has been through some transition. And if you've ever parented through transitions, kids have natural transitions in life, but then there's other external transitions we could go through as families, whether that's moving or job changes or losing a loved one, things like that. And so Josh has, with his wife, has parented through several transitions. And so just wanted to get his input and insight. I think you guys are going to love this conversation. So here it is. All right, well, Josh, welcome to Kicks and Minivans. Thanks for joining me, man.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Yeah, so give us a little background about yourself. Tell us about you, your wife, your kids, all that.
Yeah, I'm married for 16 years to Bethany, my best friend, man. I'm happy to be her plus one places, because she's pretty awesome. She's fantastic.
You do end up being her plus one too.
that's a badge of honor. Like I would take that gladly. We have 4 kids, which is a lot. Our oldest is almost 12, and then they just turned 11, just turned 10, 8, and 5, and two boys, 2 girls. So this is a fortuitous week to be doing this, because my wife's been out of town this week, so I've been single dadding it with 4 kids all week, and it's and
you're still here.
The fact that I've showered this morning is just truly a major win.
That really is a major win. And I don't know if you know, I come from a family of 4.
Do you really?
I got 3 little sisters. Yeah, I got 3 little sisters. I was the oldest, and 3 sisters. And so being on the kid side of that, I'm like, no. So we're gonna get into that. We're gonna get into that in a second, because I want to hear your perspective on some of that. But we got to talk sneakers. So yeah, you're one of the few people that I personally know with a bigger collection than me. So I'm like, makes me feel good. Makes me feel like, I have a right to go out and get a few more pairs. But tell us, what is your favorite pair of sneakers that you own? Or give me like your top 2 if you got more than one.
You can't reduce it down to, like, it's just too hard.
I know.
I think probably my favorite pair is Nike SB Dunk Low Maple Leafs. I love SB Dunks. I've always loved them.
You're a big dunk guy. Before they were cool.
Yeah, I love the Dove Gray colorway. I love the little maple leaf here, and just like the green laces with the red. It just works, man. What are these, aglets? I think they're called. I love these.
Yeah, the details are nice.
I love Asics Gel Light 5 Millionaires Row. It's like a seersucker kind of material here. These are surprisingly comfortable, and the split tongue took a little while for me to get on board with, but like I really like these. So I
don't know. I've never owned a split tongue.
Yeah,
you don't see them that.
Plus, it lets you show off your sock game a little bit, but they're kind of like a little dressier, and I really like these. And I just like the material here. Big fan.
They're a little unique. My sock game's weak compared to yours, though. I don't have a strong sock game at all.
We'll get you there.
Working on it, little by little.
And then I love Vans, and so these are Vans collab with Alexi Ross. They're laundry bags. They're called laundry bags because it's made out of like a laundry bag material. And then the insole here, it's got like the tag. It looks like a shirt collar, and it's got like a shirt with that stain is there. It's not from me. That's
not from you. That's
to make it look like a dirty shirt.
Part of the details, dude. The details are nice on that though. And I know you appreciate those details a lot.
It's plastic. It's like woven plastic.
Interesting.
Yeah.
How often do you wear those ones?
I wear those on Sundays.
Okay.
I try and like ration those. But then lastly, this is such a weird shoe. It's a Jordan Viz Air 11. It's really a mashup of a Jordan 11 and an Air Max 1. And I just
definitely could see the elements of the two of those.
Yeah, look at that.
The colors work on that, man.
Well, the South Beach colorway.
The blue and pink is like
it always works.
It's a very slept on combo.
Yeah,
I feel like it's a great combination. All right, so
and all that
you couldn't
all that stuff I
got
one. In like the halcyon days of shoe collecting when you could still get stuff on actual websites. Like I think I got these. I bought these from eBay for like brand new, like 7 or 8 years ago, for $62, I think.
Yeah, you can't find that now.
No, it's
the game has changed. The game has changed.
The when I was a kid, like thing that parents do. It's like when I'm going to say like it's when I was a kid, you could still get shoes for retail. You could go to a store and find them on sale.
Not no more. Not no more. Oh my goodness, dude. All right,
it was possible to own a pair of SB Dunk Lows.
Dudes, I have, you know this, but like, my wife had mentioned one time she liked the Panda Dunks. They've restocked like 10 times now. I refuse to pay resale.
I've tried for you.
She doesn't even care. I don't even want anyone else to try for me. I want to get them for retail off Nike. Like, she doesn't even care about them anymore. But I care as a matter of principle. I'm like, I need to get. They will continue restocking until the end of time. I will eventually hit and get it. But yeah, dude, it's just ridiculous. And yeah. All right, so how many? I won't make you answer how many pairs of shoes you got. But if you could have any pair in the world to add to your collection, regardless of money, like if someone just gifted you a pair, what would be that pair?
Oh man, the Sean Wotherspoon Air Max 97 ones that he did. It's like everything I like about sneakers. It's weird colors, it's weird materials, it's kind of a unique silhouette. Like those are just amazing.
Yeah,
those are amazing.
They are nice. And so many of the shoes that you're into, like I appreciate from an art standpoint. It's not my style or what I would rock. But I think that's the cool thing about sneakers. It's like we're both into it a lot, but vastly different styles.
Yeah, very true.
But it's like, man, like so many of the things that you show me are stuff that I would have never even seen. Like those Vans, like I never seen those ones before, but love them and appreciate them. Not necessarily my style, but definitely a sweet pair. Definitely a sweet pair.
I got a bonus pair because it's recording this December 1st. It's December now. Christmas pair. It's my favorite Christmas pair. SB Dunk Low
fantastic pair.
Candy canes with like the little brick chimney and snowflakes on the inside with the white and
dude. Those ones are amazing.
Red strip canvas.
You really only wear them like 1 month out of the year, but it's so worth it.
And I've had these for so long, and I'm like, I love these things. And I got them off Nike's website like 6 or 7 years ago for like $60. It's crazy.
Probably sat for a little bit too.
Yeah. So I waited until they got marked down. Waited until I found a sale. Little promo code.
You're like, I'll wait on those. Like, no, there's no waiting. Like, you have a 1/10 of a second now, or else you missed your chance. You missed your shot. You know
exactly.
what's crazy is like there's some of them that they do sit for a while. Like we were just texting about the We the Best Jordan 5 collab. And like I forgot about it. I went on at like 11 and like my size was still available like an hour later. And I was like, like I don't really want them either. But like, dude, some of these actually do sit. But then Lost and Found, you know, I was pending for 70 minutes until I got the
minutes, I think, yeah.
So it was something like that. Yeah. It took me like 8 minutes just to enter the draw, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was one of the worst releases Nike's done in quite a while, I feel like. But, yeah. Anyways, all right, man. So you
Very
got
true.
4 kids.
Yeah.
4 kids between, what was it, 12 and 5?
Oh, yeah, almost 12 and 5.
All right. So as you're adding them on, like, what was the hardest transition? Like, obviously, like, adding your first kid just changes your life completely, right? This is like you went from not having any kids to now your parents. So it changes everything. Did it get easier each time you added a kid? Because, like, me and my wife, we were just talking the other day, and I was like, no, I feel like 2 kids is definitely harder than 1. Because, like, we have a crazy, insane 2-year-old on top of a baby. You know, like it wasn't, I didn't feel like it was this hard before. So it's like as you added kids between 1, 2, 3, and 4, did it get easier? Or like, what was the level of difficulty like in that? Because I think a lot of guys wonder that.
Nothing's harder than 0 to 1. You just have no frame. You have no frame of reference for it.
That's true.
Your whole life changes. I think people talk about 2 to 3 is hard because it's, you're not kind of one-on-one, but the trade-off is you have older kids who can be more helpful. So it's like, can you pass me that diaper? Like that's a thing now. 4 was hard for us, but that's also temperament. It's like our youngest saw the other 3 and was like, oh, they've had it easy. Proof of God's ongoing sanctifying work in my life is my youngest child. He's like,
I remember
you've
just
got
when
some
we were
issues
working,
to work on, sir, and I'm going to help.
Just when we were working together, he was 2, which now my oldest is 2. And like, dude, like every time it was all Zoom then, right? Because it was in the peak of COVID. But every time we logged on for a meeting, you're like, I have a story about my 2-year-old. You're like, or we're like, all right, what do we need prayer for? You're like, well, my 2-year-old. Like,
That's true. It's so true. He is the strongest willed. If we can find a way to channel that, I mean, he's gonna be the guy who explores Mars or something. I mean, he is so strong willed. If we can find a way to use that for good and not for nefarious purposes, the world will be a better place.
Is that a youngest child? Is that a baby of the family type thing?
That's what people say, but it also feels like, I don't know, if we just stopped at 2, I can't see my 10-year-old being that way.
Really?
So it's hard to know.
Yeah.
But in practice, you definitely, because he's the youngest, I mean, we definitely feel it with him. And I try and give him grace because he's grown up in COVID, you know? So he grew up like staying at home, and he's the only one of our kids who didn't get time just with us. And so I'm trying to give him grace because, or at least my brain tries to give him grace because my heart is like, stop doing that.
You're like, dude, I've told you a million times.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially when you're solo dadding it for the week with 4 kids. You know, that's...
My 5-year-old lives in our house like he's a bad house guest. Just helping himself to food, doing whatever he wants, leaving stuff, like not cleaning up after himself. It's like he's staying at an Airbnb and doesn't care about the reviews he's gonna get. That's what it feels like.
Doesn't care about the reviews.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, these guys are gonna love me anyway. I'll just
exactly.
You know, like I think there's something to that though, where it's like, all right, he feels safe enough though, you know.
He definitely
feels safe.
He feels very
He definitely feels safe. He feels a little too safe.
Probably it's a little bit too safe. Probably using feeling a little bit less safe.
You're like, you can use a little fear, a little respect in his life.
True. It's very true.
All right, so you got 4 kids and you got, you know, a crazy youngest one. I always say, like, I feel like the greatest gift that we could give our kids is a picture of a healthy marriage.
Yeah.
Right? And I feel like even with, you know, we got two much younger than yours, you know, 2-year-old and a baby. But even with that, man, it's like, it's hard, and we have to be super intentional about making time for our own marriage. Like, how do you, with 4 kids, demanding career, plus like y'all are like forever renovating, like following your wife's Instagram is like a real life HGTV show where it's like not everything's neatly wrapped up in an hour like they make it look like on TV, right? How do you guys make time for each other? Like, honestly, like, make your marriage a priority in the midst of all that?
I mean, it's a good question. It's all the experts say the best kids crave safety, kids crave security, and one of the best ways you can provide that is a healthy, stable marriage. Not everybody's in that position for different reasons, and then okay, so you figure that out. It doesn't mean you can't be a good parent in those situations, but I think the best case scenario is. Best thing I can do for my kids is show them how much I love their mom, because then they feel safe. My daughter the other day is struggling with anxiety, and she was just kind of panicked. You could see it on her face, and we were talking, and she's just feeling scared and feeling anxious. And as we talked, what kind of comes out is she has a friend whose parents are getting divorced, and she's like, "I heard you and mommy had an argument, and you're going to get divorced." And it was like, "Oh, this is the easiest thing I can ever tell you, is that will never happen, because we made a promise to each other, but we also made a promise to God. And that's just, of all the things you have to worry about, because then you help her understand. It's like, loving someone doesn't mean you always agree or everything's fine. It's like, you love your sister. She's your best friend, but do you guys always get along? And she's like, well, no. It's like, okay. So just helping her understand those things. It's hard to get away because the cost of babysitting has risen dramatically.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, that is to the point. It's like, should I do this? Would this be more lucrative for me if I just babysit for people?
It might be, and that's why I left my career and we moved closer to family so that we could get some help with that,
Yeah. We try and be intentional about getting time together. My wife's good about that. The problem, like what makes it hard is it feels like the cost of babysitting has risen dramatically. Everybody, when we're talking about inflation, it's like gas prices and eggs. It's like, let's talk about babysitting.
Yo.
Because I feel like I'm in the wrong field. Like, I feel like I could make more money if I just went and babysat.
Which you might, but like, I also feel like you'll spend more money on babysitting than you will on your actual date night out.
Yeah. Well, that's when you're like, well, let's go to dinner. It's like, okay, we go and I have low standards. So a reasonably nice dinner at some place, like, I don't know, say you're spending $50. It's like, but it's not $50. It's $100 because you got to pay babysitting too. And then if you go see a movie, it's like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So
it's like the longer you're out, the more babysitting money you're forking over.
Which at this point, they're asleep. You're just watching TV. Right. I just need someone to make sure the house doesn't catch on fire. At that point, that's all you're asking.
Yeah, pretty much.
But Bethany's really good about making sure we get time, and then we try and be flexible, be creative. So, go to breakfast Friday mornings if I don't have stuff. Like we try and find that time, because part of the reason why our kids are in bed by 8:30, 8:45 is we just need time at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Because it's important for us.
I fully agree, and I get that, and I think like that's when me and Becky really only ever have a chance to connect is at the end of the day. It's like we try talking about stuff during the day as we have to, but it's like, dude, you got a baby crying, you got a 2-year-old trying to jump off the fireplace or whatever. It's like just so many things are happening.
Yeah.
But I think I love one of the things you said earlier on that was that I hadn't thought about. This was the safety aspect of like having your kids feel safe. And I remember thinking that when I was a kid, right? Like if I heard my parents arguing, it's like, are they going to get divorced? And it's like, I didn't really have a deep understanding of marriage at that point. But yeah, man, it's like, what a way to make your kids feel safe and secure in their home, which home should be the safest place in the world for a kid. Sadly, for many, it's not.
Yeah. That's very true.
Like, man, not just like physically in a safe point, but like emotionally, mentally, spiritually in a safe place where it's like, no, mommy and daddy love each other. Yeah. And even if they don't always get along, you know, like they're going to be together. Like what an amazing gift to give your kids.
I try and talk about her. Like I was talking to the kids last night, just saying like how amazing their mom is. Like I want them to hear me brag about her. Because I'm so proud of her. Like my wife is incredible. And, I want my kids to know I think that. I think a lot of times we leave the unspoken, and it's like, no, let's speak the unspoken.
I like that.
Because that's how we reinforce those things. And even as we're talking, it made me think of a time, like 4 kids, somebody's not sleeping well. Like that's just the cycle. Somebody's not sleeping well. And so this was like, when was it? It's a couple months ago. No, maybe it was a year ago. I honestly can't even remember. But there was a time when one of my daughters, like my youngest was getting out. I can't remember, but somebody wasn't sleeping well. So it's been a couple days. I haven't slept through the night. And one of my daughters comes in at night, and in a very like the Ring-esque horror movie style moment, like I'm asleep and then I just kind of feel this presence. And I wake up and there's a little girl with long hair standing by the side of the bed. You're just like, okay, oh gosh, okay. And then it's like, I don't want to freak her out. But I'm like, no, everything's good. And my heart is, I feel like heart is going to explode because it's like, that's the creepiest way possible you could be woken up.
Yeah.
Someone just like standing over you in the bed. But she said she had a nightmare. She had a bad dream and she's really scared. And she's like, can I snuggle with you for a minute? And she climbs in bed. And I could feel her heart racing, and she kind of like worms her way in and just kind of stays there. And then I feel her calm down. And what hit me in that moment is I'm her safe place. Like I'm safe for her. And it's so wildly inconvenient because I'm going to be so tired the next day. And anyone that says they sleep well with a little kid near them, I dispute that because it's just not possible. But it was like this, what I could be for her in that moment was she felt safe, which for me was a good picture of that's how God wants me to view him as my safe place. Yeah. But it just was powerful for me the way that she saw me that way.
Yeah. Well, we just started in the last month, the baby started sleeping really well. And then Jace started this like sleep regression, like immediately after. So close. I mean, we might have had like a week of like perfect synchronized sleeping. But Jace went from like sleeping like 12 to 14 hours straight at night to like waking up multiple times, like, and like not just waking up, going back to sleep, like screaming, pulling at the door, and he can't open the door handle yet. So, he's just like banging at his door, screaming for us for like hours. Like you can't just let him fall back asleep. Like he's going to go for it. Mm-hmm. And it's like he's come into bed with us a couple times and I'm like, no, I've not fallen back asleep. It's like you either got like hair in your mouth or you got like a foot in your back or something. It's like, it's just, but like what an honor to be so that true. Safe space.
Yeah.
For the kids, And
Absolutely.
It's like, man, I'll remember that I didn't sleep well, but like, I'm going to remember more that it's like, no, we were able to be their safe space.
Yeah.
And that's like the greatest gift you could give your kids. All right. So with 4 different kids, I got 2 little ones and they're both pretty young still, but like I can already see like personality differences in the 2, right? Mm-hmm. Like even at this young age, you got 4 older ones. Like they have to be 4 like wildly different personalities, even if like some of them are similar. How do you like as a dad, how does that change the way that you interact with them? You know what I mean? Because it's like the way that one feels love might not be the way another one does.
How do I do that? Not well, it feels like. But you're right. It's what's hard as a parent is the moments where you have to dig deepest are the moments when it's hardest to. But they are different, and I need to love them differently and treat them differently. And so it's it's thinking, at least one of the things that's helped my wife and I is realizing, okay, they are their own humans. We think of them as our kids, as this collective unit, but they are their own people. What do they need? Their love languages are very different. One of them is physical touch, one of them is quality, and just will be like as close to us as humanly possible. One of them's quality time. Like they're wired differently. And so as that's become more clear, like my wife's told me, prepping me for this week, she's like, one of them will come home and just has to talk. And it can be hard to hang in there because it's just like fourth grade drama can be hard to really, really track with because it's like, oh, okay.
Like, and all of a sudden, I got beef with this girl and her dad. And I don't know her.
It's like, oh, okay. But that communicates love to them. How do I engage with you in this? How do I communicate care for you in this? Sometimes we look at kids, as adults look at kids, as kids are all the same. And I don't even think we do that on purpose, but we just kind of subconsciously think that way. But it's really going, what do they need uniquely? How do I connect with them? I went out Saturday night and ran errands with my oldest, and we had, because my wife was taking my girls to her sister-in-law's and took the youngest with her. And so my oldest and I just went out and we ran errands and played games at GameStop. I just let him pick what he wanted to do. And then we went out for dinner. That's where we had the another round of the talk, which was just, I was way more uncomfortable than he was. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm dying.
Because what's about to go down.
Yeah.
He's a little
and
curious.
I don't like, oh man, I'm so weird. Anyway. And what was so fun for me is he started this thing a couple years ago about like top 3 things. And we just kind of ask each other top 3 questions. And I was like, okay, top 3 memories, you and me. And he's like, number 1 was his birthday last year. He and I took this trip together. And his second thing is like, probably tonight. And you're just like, are you saying, like, this is just a random thing, but that kind of concentrated time, it's like you can just watch this little thing fill up.
Yeah. And I could totally because I feel like Jace might be the quality time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like and it's like all kids spell love TIME, right? But even staying home with them full time, I used to just get unlimited quality time with Jace. Now there's a baby that's very demanding that he has to split that time with. And so, Becky, when she's home, like she'll stay home with the baby and I'll take Jace out. And it's like we went to a trampoline park and man, it's like the kid was filled up like for the rest of the day. Like it didn't matter what he did the rest of the day. Like he could have kicked a paper ball around for the rest of the day. Like he had a great day, because like we got that one-on-one time and he got to get all this energy that he had bundled up out. But like, man, that's so amazing. And I think it's so great. Like, especially when you have multiple children, to like take that time and say like, hey, I'm going to be one-on-one with this kid right now. Just helps them know that they're valuable still.
Yeah.
And I think we might underestimate how much they actually need that.
I think that's true. When adults build relationships, one of the things we try and do is communicate importance to someone else, like what they care about or what they're interested in. We want to communicate importance by we'll get into their world, right? It's asking questions. It's learning about someone else. And for some reason, we often don't apply that to our own kids. And it's like, how do I get into your world? I took one of my daughters out grocery shopping. By the way, this is great. Just for everyone listening, I get to share my greatest hits here, and don't get to talk about the times I've done it poorly. This is hard. But I was really challenged. We were out, and they had my girls made up a thing called the Pineapple Tea Shop, where they love to do this. So they had these little mini scones, and I was like, what if we got these? And what if the Pineapple Tea Shop was open tomorrow? And my youngest daughter was like, that'd be amazing. And so the next day, they made up a menu. They brought stuff upstairs to their room. They set up a whole little thing. And we sat in there for like maybe 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes. Like it wasn't that long, but they spent like an hour and a half preparing, and
Yeah.
it meant so much to them. And it was just it honestly was a really good challenge for me of this cost me very little. But the benefit was so dramatic.
Yeah. The payoff was there.
I wish I was less of a selfish turd often, because this is the kind of dad I want to be.
Yeah. And I think we all have that, and probably all have those moments, at least I do, of like, where I'm like, I feel like I'm crushing it, you know? And then it's like in those moments, I'm like, man, I feel like I'm being such a great dad in this moment. Why can't I always be like this? Like, you know, and it's like, because just an hour ago, I was losing my temper, you know? And it's like, I was throwing an adult temper tantrum, essentially, you know? And it's like, man, and I heard a quote yesterday that was, what did he say? He's like, I've always regretted losing my temper, but I've never regretted keeping my cool, you know? And it's like, man, that's the type of dad I want to be. And when we get these little moments, it's like, man, I have to reinforce them in myself of like, hey, remember this. Remember that it paid to keep your cool. Remember that it paid to pay more attention to my kid than it did my phone. You know, because it's hard. It's not easy, because you're just exhausted all the time, especially when you got the kids not sleeping well, right? So, all right. So you had mentioned like, all right, we just hit a cycle of like one kid started sleeping well, the other didn't. And you said like it's basically always with 4 kids, someone's not sleeping well, which means mom and dad's not always sleeping well. But kids go through so much transition in life just by nature, right? Just, you know, learning potty training, starting school, driving a car, going to college. Like there's so many huge transitional moments in life. And then you guys, your family has had like unbelievable transition in the last couple of years on top of all that stuff. But with 4 kids and their transitions and everything, how often do you feel like life is normal versus you're hitting another transition, or is like change just normal for you guys at that point? Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think everybody the last couple of years life was so weird that normal, there really was no normal. And so I think a minor blessing, we moved twice during COVID because COVID messed up our plans. And that was obviously very hard, but the nice thing was, that's not nice, but I guess like one of the things that made it like a tiny bit easier was everybody was going through something really hard. So, cause it is challenging. The nice thing is kids are resilient. Partly because they just don't know any better. And so if you explain why and they create some normalcy in the midst of it, like my kids have transitioned to school. We've been here for 15 months and my kids have transitioned to school, have transitioned well. And the interview process took a long time. And so they had to switch schools 2 months into school, which we did not want, but there was nothing we could do about it.
Yeah.
But they've put down roots, and we're really grateful for that. It's hard, but kind of with kids, they're just used to change. Because there's so many more milestones. Like the milestones slow down as you get older. There's just so many milestones when they're younger. So I think some of that's
and walking and saying your first words and
some of that's just baked into it. So, but there's reality. Like a couple of them went through some separation anxiety. Like I said, one of my daughters was really dealing with anxiety, and that stuff didn't help. But it's leaning into it, and because it's just life. You know, that's what life's going to be. Life's going to be unsettled. Life's going to be difficult at different times. And so we try and be honest with them as much as we can, because it's like we want to protect their innocence but not shelter them, if that makes sense.
That's a hard balance. That's a hard balance to find.
It really is.
Do you feel like your kids each dealt with the change differently? Because you guys have moved from like Indiana to PA to another spot in PA and renovated a house along the way. Like, I mean, you guys have gone through so much. Do you feel like they handled it differently, or like kind of all fairly similar?
No, I think that they handle it according to their temperaments. You know, I've got two that are a little more outgoing, that made friends quicker. Also, younger kids tend to just make friends quick. Younger kids are just like, I like the look of you, sir. Let's be friends, and then they're like best friends. So it was easier for my younger kids, but even with my oldest, he's in 6th grade now, and he's really kind of found his stride. But he's more reserved. He's more shy, kind of less outgoing, which is surprising. His kid is awesome. But they kind of deal with it in their own way. And that's what makes it hard, is you don't know. There's no handbook. I mean, there are plenty of books to read, but there's no handbook for your kids.
Yeah, that's true.
It's all trial and error. And so my hope as a parent is like, I know I'm going to mess them up. My hope is to mess them up as little as possible and in the most easily fixable ways.
And trust God for the rest of it, right?
Absolutely.
Like,
absolutely.
But I also think that's too, like, man, that's why it's so important for you and your wife to be a team.
Oh, yeah.
And I just, like, we get to the end of some of these days, and I just look at my wife, and I'm like, I'm so thankful we're a team. Like, I'm so thankful, like, we're not arguing and bickering all the time. Because it's like, I mean, you see that a lot, and I'm like, life would just be that much more miserable and exhausted. Like, life's not really miserable, but, like, it would be if that was the case. But it's like, man, when you're like, dude, I wasn't crushing it as a dad today. It's like, that's times where it's like, man, I see my wife stepping up, and she's like, do what you need to do. Like, go take a nap, go to the gym, go do what you have to do. Like, I got this. And it's like, man, there's like, you feel a little bit of guilt about like leaving her, but you're also like, she's in a way better headspace than me, like, and there's times where it's the opposite, where I'm just like, hey, I got this. You got to go take care of yourself a little bit. But it's like, man, that's why it's so important that you and your wife be a team, man. And like, going back to what you said at the beginning of like, hey, I have to be intentional. And I love what you said too about like, hey, I want to brag on my wife, like in front of my kids, basically, of like, I want them to know how awesome I think she is, or how awesome I know she is. Yeah. Like I absolutely love that.
She's better at being a mom than I will ever be at anything. And I'm really, not only have I made my peace with that, but it's like, that's a really good thing for I'm grateful for my kids' sake that they have their mom. She's really good, and she's great at making things a thing. And I am grateful that we get to do this together. And we were talking the other day. We just had a night where I called her because she's away. She's out of town. I was just like, nothing happened. No, but it's death by 1,000 cuts. It's like, it's the aggregate where I'm like, I just need to talk to another human. And this is those moments where if she was home, she just stepped in and be like, all right, let me take over. Yeah. It's tag team wrestling. It's like, let me tag your partner and go in. And vice versa. There's times where I come home and she's like, they're yours. I'm like, okay, let's get everybody in the car. Let's go run some errands. Because she needs
don't know where we're going, but we're getting out of here.
Exactly. We're just going to go. When they're young enough, you can treat the pet store like a small zoo. So that's my dad hack.
I might need to tap into that because there's one right around the corner. We might need
Why do all these animals have price tags? Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about them. They're out of your price range. You have $0.
You were talking about being a team, and it's important that we are a unit. One of the things that I've done premarital counseling with a lot of different couples, and one of the things we try and emphasize that is very true and try and like live out in my own marriage is we don't win or lose as individuals. There's no more winning and losing as individuals anymore. We win and lose as a team. If I won and Bethany lost, we lost. It's like you take the worst outcome for both of you. You both experience that. And so it's important that my kids know, like, I support, like, I'm not going to disagree with their mom, with my wife in front of them, because I want them to see I support her and vice versa. Like, we stand with each other. We're a united front. And that means that we have to work through stuff, because there are times where it's like, why can't they have dessert tonight? It feels like they could have dessert tonight. But if I come in and go like, hey, I'm going to be fun parent, and be like, dessert for everyone, ice cream all around. I undermine her.
Yeah.
And that doesn't do anybody any good.
That takes that whole for better, for worse thing to a whole new level when you put it like that, of like, man, this is the ultimate team sport right here.
Yeah.
Like, marriage is the ultimate team sport. I love that. I don't know that I've thought about it like in those exact terms before, but like, man, like, yeah, we win together or we lose together, you know? I think that's a great, and I think too, you know, one of the quotes I keep saying go around is, you get to choose your life partner, but your kids don't get to choose their mom. So it's like when you choose your partner, you know, and this is like, I know there's a couple single guys that listen to this. Like, when you choose your partner, you're not only choosing your wife, but you're choosing your kid's mom. And like, man, that takes it to a whole new level, because it's not just about you anymore, right? Like, it's about your kids too. And, you know, it's like, I'm proud to say, like, I feel like I chose excellently, you know. Excellently, is that a word? I don't know.
Sure, we'll make it one.
But I chose excellently, you know. And yeah, it's just like you really can't put a price tag on that, where it's like, man, I have an amazing wife and she's an amazing mom at the same time. And it's like, man, my kids are so lucky to be able to call her mom.
And that extends out too to parents that aren't together anymore, where there are situations in extreme circumstances of abuse, mistreatment, negligence, where separating is a good thing, if, you know, not being around parents. But in a lot of cases, if a couple has gotten divorced or is no longer together, that other person, that other spouse, is still those kids' dad or mom.
Yeah.
And I've walked with a number of families and just seen them go through. It's like, when you badmouth a spouse, like, you're badmouthing your dad, the kid's dad, to them, and that undermines so much more than just that relationship. And so it matters, even irrespective of the health of the marriage or the relationship between the parents.
Right.
That mutual respect matters, because, like you said, that's their dad, that's their mom.
Yeah, and this was something we were talking about on a previous episode, where my buddy Anthony, who's a stepdad, you know, he was talking about, like, hey, he's in a good situation, but man, there's a lot of those types of things. And what you were talking about is, you know, it's exceptionally selfish to sit there, you know, if you have a split marriage and, you know, doing the blended family thing, it's exceptionally selfish to sit there and badmouth the kid's mom or dad in front of them, you know, because I don't think you're really thinking about what that's doing to the inside of them, to hear their dad talk poorly about their mom, or hear their mom talk poorly about their dad. So it's like, man, you're right. Like, for marriages or for split relationships where you're still trying to co-parent, like, dude, honoring the other person, regardless of what's going on, honoring the other, that is in the best interest of the kid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
well said.
So
shout out, Love the Poet.
Shout out, Love the Poet. So obviously, like, transition, you know, we've talked a little bit about transition. You guys have had a lot of that. There has to be things that remain constant in the midst of that, though, right? Like, what do you do to keep some sort of consistency, constancy in your house for your kids? Like, what are some of those things?
Yeah, I think our goal would be that family still feels like family no matter where we lived. And so my wife's really big on, it's like kind of family, traditions is a little strong, but kind of like family stuff. Like, we have breakfast for dinner on Sunday nights, and I like variety. So we're not doing that for me. My kids really like that, and that's really fun.
Yeah.
They each had their own advent calendars this morning, and they were even though my wife's out of town, like, we had talked, we had the plan. She wrapped two of them. The other two came after she left. I wrapped those two. They woke up this morning, and I made sure to video it so I could send it to her so she could see it, because she loves that stuff. But that's the thing they look forward to, and so creating those rhythms as a like, kids want routine. They won't ask for it. No kid's ever going to ask for routine, but I think they want routine because they want structure. They want it because it's knowable, it's familiar, and that stuff all goes back to what we talked about. It all breeds safety. It all makes them feel safe. But I think that's when we've moved. It's like I want them to always feel like home, and so the house will be different. Their room might look different. But that was one of the first things we did when we moved here. Is Bethany wanted their room set up so they really felt like their spaces. She's really good about that.
She creates amazing spaces too.
She does. She
just does.
She's on Instagram, Crummy Castle. She's very good,
dude.
And funny.
That account is worth a follow, even if you don't like home reno projects. Like, she's just hilarious too. So
she's pretty.
Shout out Crummy Castle. But
it's that stuff. It's just creating those spaces. Those regular rhythms of stuff we can do. Game nights of. I know you do Taco Tuesday. It's that kind of stuff. It's just the stuff that becomes your family DNA.
Yeah. Well, and I love to, like, you mentioned in parts of that too, it was like individual stuff for each kid, right? Like, they're each going to have their room set up. They each have their own advent calendar. It's like, man, I think when we have multiple kids, you can just look at them as the kids. But it's like, no, like, each one is like, we're a part of this family, but each one is their own individual person.
My girls have kind of consolidated power and act as a voting block, which is pretty smart because then they only have to win over one of the other two.
Yeah,
it's very smart. It's very savvy on their part. But yeah, it's like I try and go out to breakfast with one of them every couple weeks before school, just kind of creating those familiar connection points, so that life kind of feels similar.
Yeah. No, that's an awesome thing. So I think one of the themes that has come out of this conversation, which wasn't necessarily where I was planning to go, but I absolutely love it, is the idea of being a team with your spouse. And like, I'm 100% on board with that, man. Like, I don't know that I could do this parenting thing if me and my wife weren't a team.
No,
so
goodness, no.
No, like, it's hard enough as it is.
I would say that's stronger than I don't know. I'd say it would be a struggle. If I was trying to do this alone. So
I don't think I could.
Tremendous respect for parents that are doing that because it is incredibly hard.
We pray for you, man. And I hope if you are doing it alone, I hope you find, they'd say it takes a village. Like, man, I hope you find a village. Like, get plugged in at a local church. Like, find some
people
good
walk
friends.
with you. Absolutely.
Yeah, like, you need help. You need support around you. But talk to the married guys for just a second. If they're in a marriage and they're raising kids, and they don't feel like he and his wife is a team, what's one thing they can do to help build that team mentality?
Talk. What are the barriers to that? Where are the points of conflict? I mean, that's where it starts. Why do you feel like you're not a team right now? Do you disagree on discipline or parenting style, but you got to be on the same page because kids are smart and can sense cracks and will try and exploit those to their own advantage. And for their own development, that matters, but also figuring those things out. Like, one of the things I think we are not great at is culturally is nobody likes conflict. Like, we'll all be confrontational until it takes time to actually address it. And then like, we all kind of run from it or hide behind our keyboard or do stuff like that. And it's like, the only way in marriage, the only way to the other side is through it. That's it. It's the only way. There's one path. You
can't get around it. Yeah.
And so have those conversations. What are the disagreements? Where do they come from? And figure them out. If it's bedtime, if it's if it's food, if it's sweets, if it's activities, whatever those things are. My wife would err towards, I think she would say this, I'm probably more of a risk taker and she's less of one. And so she's going to err on the side of safety. And there are times she's right. There's times I got to trust her and go, you're right. It's probably not wise for me to do this. And there's times where I've had to push her and go, we need to let them fail. Like, we need to let them learn that way. And if you trusted if you trust the other person enough to get married, then choose to extend that trust to, and when it comes to parenting.
Yeah. And I think, in part of that, I think some guys can hear that and be like, talking leads to fighting. And I think, like, all right, fighting and arguing as a married couple, it's like, it's going to happen. But I think, like, when you do you do that well? And do you fight and argue in order to come to a resolution?
Yeah.
Or do you fight and argue just to fight and argue? Because it's like,
conflict doesn't have to mean fighting.
No, no, it doesn't. It doesn't. And I can say, like, I honestly say, like, me and my wife, we don't have fights. It's like, you know, we have disagreements, we talk through them, but it's like we specifically go at it to come to a resolution. You know, and I think that's the difference maker is it's like, hey, we're trying to get on the same page. And the only way to do that is to talk through it, not around it. Yeah. You know, and so it's like, man, we have to have those conversations. But I think you're right, man. That helps build that teamwork up. And often that talk has to happen after the kids are in bed, you know? And so it's like, hey, that's happening at 9 p.m, you know? It's like, I'm not at my best then, but like, you know, I'm a morning person, but like, hey, I'm going to put aside everything else because, like, this is worth it. This is important.
If you need a reminder that you need to be part of a team and you're a parent, take the kids by yourself for a couple of days. And then you'll quickly remind, oh, gosh, I need help here.
Yeah, or be a stay-at-home dad for a bit. You know, if your wife's the one that stays home with the kids full time, like, switch with her for a little. Give her a couple days out, man. Do it. Yeah, you're right, dude. Well, bro, thank you so much for hopping on, man. I've had fun just hanging out and chatting about this stuff with you.
My pleasure.
So really appreciate you taking the time.
Man. It's great to catch up and talk about this stuff.
Absolutely. We're going to start ending each episode with what I call a drop. And it's the one thing we can do as men, as husbands, as fathers this week to lead better in our homes. And it's always going to be simple. And this week's drop is this. Be a team. Whatever you got to do to build that team mentality with your wife, with your spouse. If you're not on the same page about how you running your house or how you're raising your family or what you each want out of your marriage, man, you have a responsibility as a man to start that conversation. Maybe there's things you know that you could do, like, you know your wife better than me, like, what's her love language? Like, connect with her, be intentional about connecting with her, building that bridge, that bond with her so that you can be a team, because life's hard enough, bro. Like, life is hard enough, man. And I don't know how people go through life just being at odds with their spouse all the time, man. Be a team. Because instead of fighting against each other, you fight with each other. I think that's how God designed it. I think the best marriages are when you standing together, facing the challenges together instead of trying to fight them at your own time. Man, that's exhausting, trying to fight battles on your own. Your spouse is there. Be a team. Attack things head on together. Have each other's back. Whatever you got to do as the man in your household, build that bridge, make that happen. Well, hey, thanks so much for joining us in Kicks and Minivans this week. However you're watching and listening, leave us a review, leave us a comment. It really helps us as we're getting this thing going. Follow us on Instagram at Kicks and Minivans. And as always, take care of yourself, take care of your family. Shoot, so I don't even know.
While we pause, before I forget, will you help me on Saturday at 11 try and get the lobster dunks?
If I don't go by myself, I actually really like those.
You would hate them. You would hate them. I realized it looked like I was leaving the podcast because of that, but that wasn't.
The timing made it look like you were leaving because of that.